And so it's one of these frames that I love. Dr. Kashi says this. He says, you're 99% right, but 100% wrong. And what that means is like, for example, if I bring a girl home and I want my parents' approval, I bring her home and they say, this isn't the one, this isn't the one, she's not good enough, whatever it is, every time. It's easy for them to say that because every single person you date, except for the one you marry, they are right on. And so they're 99% of the time they're right. And they're confirmed by saying that that person that you bring home is not good enough. Because every time, eventually you break up, oh, it's not gonna last. This isn't the one, it keeps going, right? But if you keep doing that all the way to the next extreme, you're 100% wrong. Because you will be wrong eventually. And it's the same thing as like, I wanna start this business, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. The second one won't work, the fifth one won't work, the seventh one won't work. And they're right. But they're just wrong on the long enough time horizon because one of them will fucking work. And one of the girls or one of the guys that you bring home will be the one that you are gonna be with. But it's so much safer for them to be right and right and right. And they get deceived by their short-term rightness that they miss the long-term wrong. And we do this to ourselves too when you're in the victim frame. I don't even like using the victim frame, but when you're in the powerless frame. You give the power away and you get to be right over, that's why it didn't work, this relationship won't work, this job won't work. It's not gonna work this time either. Because you get to be right over and over again. It makes you feel good in the short term, but in the long term, you guarantee the loss.
I think there's also like social reinforcement. Like we love to complain about the weather.
It's literally the same thing as never investing. Like if you wanna invest your money, right? And you have all this big pile of savings. If you ever invest, there's always the possibility that it goes down in the short term. It's just the nature of markets in general. But if you never invest, you guarantee that you will never get rich over the long haul. And so every day you could make this risk. You take a small risk, but you guarantee a macro win. So you take a small risk today, potential for loss today, for the guarantee over the long haul that it grows and it makes you money. But the flip side is you don't take the small risk of loss today. You take the comfort today for the guarantee that you get the long loss. And so many people flip their life to that same thing, is that they have the pleasure for today, and they forget the second half of this, which is pain for tomorrow. And that today is also yesterday's tomorrow, and we're living through the pain that you cast, like you own this. And until you're like, this is my fault that I'm in pain today because of decisions that I put off pain for tomorrow, where today is tomorrow. When you're broke, every dollar means so much to you. And you wanna see the dollars in your bank account go up. But I never made that my goal. I made the amount of money I made every month my goal, because I saw that as my like potential energy versus stored energy. Not to get, whatever, physics people, you get what I'm saying. And so I was willing to take that stored energy and reinvest it to take $5,000 a month in income to make it $6,000 a month. Because I knew that over a year, I was gonna make 12. And so if it cost me 2 to make the 12 in income, I would make that trade every time. And so whenever I'd save up a small like nut, now obviously, I've always been pretty good about spending money. Like I've had that habit. So like again, foundations, like first, it's your fault. Second, spend less than you make. Third, take all of the excess and spend it on making more. Because if you're making minimum wage, I'm gonna say what you probably already know. You're not gonna get ahead. Like you're not gonna save your way there. You're not. Like everyone loves to tell the story of that one girl at McDonald's, but you know they don't tell? The other 100 million people who've worked at McDonald's over the world who didn't make it. And like the outcome they're talking about is like, she made $1 million over 40 years of working at McDonald's. Like you can shoot for more. And so like, take the money you make, live on nothing. And the hard part is just swallowing the pride for the fact that in the short term, everyone's going to be right when they say that you're amounting to nothing. And that's the tough part. That's the glass that you have to swallow, that you have to pull towards you. And there's just no other way. Like you have to learn the skills. Now, to be fair, YouTube didn't exist when I was doing this. And like Instagram was like a new platform. So like all this stuff, like the stuff we have today is crazy. Like the stack that these videos and this podcast, like all this stuff didn't exist. Like I remember when podcasting came out, like I was already a business owner. Like none of this stuff existed. But at the time I just took all the money I had. And I wanna make this point again, is that people think that the money is about buying courses and stuff like that, and you can. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I've learned a ton from a lot of the stuff that I've bought, to be really honest with you. But I think that I've always had an amazing return on education because I always did it. And I think, like, I always wanted to be the best student in every class, and I was good at school, and I just took business as a different other in school. But part of the expenses that come into like what you take that money for is experiments that fail. And so one of the things that happens when you're broke is that you bet on stuff and then it doesn't work and people feel like they're back at zero, but you're not back at zero. You're at where you were plus 1 experience, plus 2 experiences, plus 3 experiences, plus 4 experiences. But when you have plus 18 experiences, all of a sudden, boop, you level up 1. You get experience points. There's a reason in video games called them experience points. So you didn't trade it for nothing. You got an experience point. And with enough experience points, you get to the next level. And so I think if you just even thought about it like that, it's not a loss, but an experience point. It could bridge the gap between your current income level and the income level that you want to get to. And then guess what? There's more experience point that you have to get there. And those experience points also cost more money. Because when you take a bet in the beginning, and when I say it costs money, it's like, if you run an ad and it doesn't work, it costs money. If you want to set up a Shopify store or an e-commerce store and you spend 30, 40, 50 bucks a month, whatever, it costs money. And it does, like all of these things cost money to start. Now, mind you, it costs a lot less than it did in the 20s when you had to mortgage your house and guarantee that you'd win or you'd lose everything forever. So like the bar hasn't never been lower than it is now, but there still is a bar and you have to get over it. And I still think that the vast majority of the shit that people are trying to get over has nothing to do with the difficulty of business, but the first step, the foundation, which is it is my fault that I am here. And in it being my fault, I am the one who can get me out of it.
It sounds like in that stage 3 when you start experimenting and investing in that, and let's say the kid who has a failed dropshipping experiment or starts a school group and they want to win the school games but they don't, their measuring stick for whether or not they're doing well shouldn't be how much money they're making. Or should they be thinking about money at that point? Or
so the wealthiest people I know only think about skills. They think about what can I learn and then what can this skill get me. And so they will always take any money they can to buy more skills. And in the beginning, you have to buy all the skills yourself. Once you have enough skills that you can generate an excess of income, you can start buying other people's lives. And what I mean by that is like everything comes down to buying time. And so at some point, you're 10 years into your career and you have a handful of skills, but you can buy someone else's 10 years of skills by just paying them to do something too. So you don't have to learn all those things. And so you do need to get good at stuff, and then eventually you generalize to being good at people. And that's pretty much always the path for everyone.
maybe the framing is like a lot of people who are wanting to make more money just don't know what the avenues are.
Yeah. So a lot of people who want to make money don't understand how money is made. And so it's made by getting it from someone else. And they have to give it to you voluntarily or it's theft. And so assuming you don't want to steal, then you have to give something to someone else first. And then by doing that, they give you money in exchange, which is why I love capitalism. It's a voluntary exchange between two parties. And both parties say thank you at the end because both parties think they're better off from the trade. And so the idea is what you want to be able to do is find something valuable to trade. And so you can either trade stuff, you can find a place where you can get stuff and then bring it to other people where it's convenient for them so they pay you more than you did when you had to go find it at some back alley because, you know, suburban mom doesn't want to go into back alley to get X, Y, and Z, but you'll give it to her. Man, it sounds like I'm explaining drugs, but well, there's a reason they make money. But anyways, point is that you can sell stuff at a margin, and a part of that margin is going to be the convenience that you deliver them. And either you're selling stuff that someone else manufactures or you create your own stuff. Now, if you're starting out, you're probably going to sell someone else's stuff. And I do think, and I mean, I'm saying this right now, I do love the concept that the first thing you sell is not the last thing you're going to sell. And so learning to sell in and of itself, the best way to learn to sell is sell something. And that's why referral programs, ambassador programs, affiliate programs for different types of businesses, almost every business I've ever owned has an affiliate program. It's great to enroll in those. I'm not even going to say any of the names of the companies that we have because I want you, like, it's not about that. I want you to, if you can just, because then you only have to figure out one skill. Like if I just sell someone, if I just promote, I get paid. Cool, then I can just do it over and over again. Now over time, you're like, man, I want to make more of the nut. Cool, then you just eat more of the responsibility. So you can either sell stuff or you can sell skills. You can sell outcomes. And so that's where you develop a certain expertise. So like in the beginning for me, and like the first time the first money I ever made from a stranger was that I had a lady at the gym. It's a real story. I was in really good shape. I like to think so. And she said, will you meet me and do a nutrition consultation for me? And she didn't even say that. She said, will you help me with my food? I think is what she said. And I said, sure. And so we met at a pizza place, ironically.
In college?
No, this was after college. So this is after I graduated from college when I was still a consultant. So we did a pizza place and I was like, okay, well, what are you currently eating? And she was like, this. And I was like, well, what do you want to do? She's like, I'm trying to lose weight. And I was like, well, this is something I eat for breakfast that's less calories than your thing. It's pretty good, and try this. And it took like an hour. And then I had like a notepad, and I gave her the notes or whatever. And she took out her purse, and she wrote $200 on a check, and she handed it to me. She was like, thanks so much. And I was like, I was just like looking at the check, looking at her, looking at the check, looking at her. And I was like, okay, don't act surprised. And I was like, thanks. And then she left, and I was like, holy shit. I was like, I just got paid for, but like realistically, at this point, I was competing. So I'm winning, I had a state record at that point. Like I was in shape. And I think she knew I was a state record holder because the gym that I was a powerlifting gym. But I had done some stuff. I had gotten some level of authority on some tiny thing, and people were like, oh, can you help me with that too? And to be really honest with you, my entire life, and I'm saying like there's many paths, but like my life has been learn something, get good at it, have evidence that you are good at the thing, and then people ask you for help on that thing. And so in the beginning, people asked me how to get in shape, and then I started a business around getting people in shape. And then people who had businesses around getting people in shape asked me how I was getting my businesses that were getting people in shape to work. And then people who had businesses that were national scale that helped people in a specific niche or industry started asking me how I was helping people in a specific niche or industry. And then people who had really big businesses just started asking me, how did you get a really big business? And so like my entire life has been simply doing as hard as I fucking could to get good at something, and then do it enough times. And to be really like clear with you, every time I did it, it was not to move on to the next step. It was to just get good at the thing. And then by getting good at the thing, people asked me about it. And so it wasn't like I lost 10 pounds and then tried to start selling, weight loss advice. I had multiple state records, and I looked good. You know what I mean? Like I was in very good shape. And then people started asking me about it. And then I didn't have one gym and start telling people, hey, here's how you run a gym. I had 6 gyms by the time I was 26. And then people were like, okay, you're 26 and you have 6 gyms and you did all of cash flow, like you're doing something right. And then people started asking me about the stuff. And then when I had the licensing business doing $4 million a month, people who had other bigger businesses are doing $1 million a month or $500,000 a month, were like, how do you get to $4 million a month? And I was like, well, this is what I did. And so like, I've just tried to figure it out. And it's like the path has always been revealed as I took more steps. And so I think a big fallacy in the early on days is trying to think that you're going to figure out the entire path before you even take the first step. It's just not true.